Hi, and welcome to the Destin for More online show. We're so happy to have you here today, and I'm super excited to bring our special guest to you. But before we dive in and I introduce her, I just want to welcome you here today. My name is Wesley Reese. I'm a success coach and healer for midlife women in business. In each episode, we bring you a guest sharing with you their genius so that you can take away tips and tools and really feel empowered with a greater sense of overall well-being and prosperity in your life and your business. And in this episode, I just want to call you out. If you're a female entrepreneur who experiences the world from a more sensitive place, and you find that you may be taking on other people's feelings, or you're an overgiver or just highly empathetic, but you feel like you're on this road to burnout and you're having trouble diverting to a better route, this episode's for you. We're going to talk about how to really recognize that for yourself in your internal GPS and get out of that stuck mode where your GPS is calibrating and you're just not sure how to make that turn. And so this episode's for you. I am have had such a pleasure to get to know Philippa. She is such a joy. And I'm just to give you a little bit of background as to who she is. She is a certified transformation coach. She's a podcast host. It's called Meeting of the Minds. If you're a podcast fan, check it out. She's also the author of a book that she wrote. It's called I See Me. And it's a book about capturing her personal journey, about going from less than to being enough, sharing her experience of losing her sight in her right eye. And so it's just really moving, and I can't wait for her to dive into this a little bit more. But I wanted to share with you, she and I had the privilege of meeting because we were both expert speakers in a summit back in October. It was called the Highly Sensitive Person Awakening Summit, HSP for short. And with that, she and I just totally connected. We had a very similar background story, and she's really brought together her life experience in her work and as an HSP coach to support other HSPs to really rise from their trauma and conditioning from the past and bring their sensitive strengths to discover that true joy in life. And it's a path that she's walked herself and is super passionate about helping others do the same. So thank you for being with us, Philippa. I just am so excited to have this conversation with you. Um, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks for that great introduction. It's really lovely to be here with you. So thank you. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, same here. So I just wanted to just have you share a little bit of your personal story and how you've gotten to where you are today, and just that evolution of your self-discovery about being a highly sensitive person.
Oh, okay. So potted version quickly. Where do I start? 2017, I lost a lot of sight in my right eye, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to lose all the sight or whatever. And the doctors couldn't really tell me for a while. I did get most of the sight back. Just so let's put that out of the way. I did get most of the sight back, but what had happened in between me losing it and me getting it back was a massive unraveling for me, really, because in that time I realized that my self-worth was totally built on what I do for other people. And if I was going to lose my sight, which I really thought I was, and I thought I might lose it all, I realized that life as I knew it was about to change, and I literally had no idea how I was going to carry on. So it was really painful. It wasn't a great time at all. But what it did make me do is realized that that was my dark night of the soul, sort of lying on the floor crying, going, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And from that, I decided I had nothing else to lose. I had to hit rock bottom in order to go to therapy. So I found a therapist, and during my 3 years, I said I'd go for 6 weeks and I stayed for 3 years. And during that time, I worked through a lot of my childhood stuff, abandonment wounds, mother wounds, father wounds, alcoholic parents, lots of stuff that I worked through. And that got me to a place where I hardly recognized myself, really, because I was then, okay, I mean, this is amazing. I've worked through a lot of this stuff and we're never done, but I definitely felt the weight, a lot of the weight had been lifted. And then I was left with the question, okay, so who am I now? Because I was 47 at this stage and I'd been carrying this with me, forever. And I kind of didn't really know how to operate in the world at that stage, because I was so used to my being in my trauma responses. And, as I said, really, my main trauma response was people pleasing. There were a lot of others, because there always are, but I was a consummate people pleaser. And that showed up in all areas of my life, with my family, with my friends, at work, you name it. I put everybody else first, and I came bottom of the pile. But when I was left with this question, who am I now? It's funny, I definitely think the universe sends you things when we're ready for it. And I hadn't been ready to hear anything about high sensitivity. And all of a sudden it was coming at me. Every podcast I listened to, somebody was talking about high sensitivity, articles, books, you name it. And I was like, what is this? Why does this keep showing up? And when I decided to take a good long look at it, I realized that underneath my childhood trauma was buried this really sensitive, little girl, still hurting, still needing someone to help sort of, bring her into the world. And that is when I discovered my sensitivity. And things really started to change for me then, once I embraced that I am a highly sensitive person. And yes, the challenges that brings, but also the joy and the strengths. Life has really turned round for me. So that's the very potted version of how I found high sensitivity. And so that was 2.5 years ago that I found out I was highly sensitive.
Oh, thank you for sharing that story. And that's great to hear that you've gotten most of your sight back in your right eye too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just how that was the prompt for all of the journey, and really being able to uncover a lot of things behind it.
Yeah.
So
And actually,
discovering
in my first therapy session, my therapist said to me, oh, I wonder what it is you don't want to see. And I thought, wow, what's she talking about? But soon came to realize that she definitely had. She really did have a point, and there were lots of things I didn't want to see. So, I definitely think I ignored all the signs my body had been giving me all the years, and we'll come on to that in a minute, I know. And so it gave me something that I couldn't ignore.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's amazing how, like, we have these things that happen, and to relate it back to a kind of like a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not ready to explore it, it's going to come back in some way and get to prompt you again. But I would love for you to, for those that may not be familiar with HSPs and, the characteristics behind how to identify if you're an HSP, can you share a little bit more about that so that our viewers can start to get a greater understanding about what it means to be an HSP?
Yeah. Do you mean like how I realized? Do you mean that how it shows up, or do you mean what is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just how it shows up, and so that people can start to understand if they're new to what it means to be a highly sensitive person.
Okay,
Um,
cool. Of course, of course.
yeah.
So what I first heard that really resonated with me, there's a podcast that I listened to, and there was a guest on there who was talking about high sensitivity, and she was talking about all the sensory, the obvious sensory clues, really, because you know, highly sensitive person is sensory processing sensitivity. It's not sensory processing disorder. That's completely different, but it's a real sensitivity that we have to processing the sensory stimuli. So all the sensory information that we are getting around us every day, we take in, highly sensitive people take in a lot more data and we process it much deeper. So there's a lot going on. And I was listening to her, this woman talking about being, the things that really resonated with me were startling easily, so loud noises and sort of like jumping, like really a bit of an, you know, a big reaction, strong smells, bright lights, you know, like working in an office with overhead strip lights is just really not great for most people, to be fair, but really not great for highly sensitive people. You know, really strong tastes, and touch. You know, a lot of us don't like, we can't wear wool because it's too scratchy. You know, cutting labels out of clothes because they're just too annoying. We just can't be dealing with it. And really not liking soft and, you know, fabrics that really feel nice next to our skin. And I know everybody likes to wear soft fabrics, who doesn't? But I think when we're highly sensitive people, we just have a heightened reaction to those sort of things.
Mhm.
And also, what we don't know, if we don't know that we're highly sensitive, we don't know that our reaction is heightened. We don't know that everybody else isn't feeling the same way. So I just thought the way I was is what everybody else was the same. I had no idea there was anything different about me. So those were the things that this woman was talking about. I was thinking, oh, I don't like, I can't watch violent movies when I know
I can't
somebody is
either.
really going to be beaten. You know, I cannot be dealing with it. I can't listen to stories or certainly watch, you know, stories of, you know, any sort of cruelty, and especially to animals and children, but to anybody. You know, all of it, because I just can't watch it. It just gets me right inside so much that it stays with me for the rest of the day. And I suppose I thought that, and a lot of these things had added up for me over the years, that everybody else was having the same reaction, but somehow they were dealing with it better. And although on the outside I put a very good act on, inside I was thinking, oh God, I'm obviously broken. There's something wrong with me because I'm having a bigger reaction to all these things. And actually I hid it. I hid it really well. You know, nobody really would have guessed I was sensitive. I didn't even know that I was sensitive. So yeah, those sort of things. And then we get on to the deep processing, which, because we're deeply processing so much more information, can lead to feeling overwhelmed. And, you know, we need some strategies, some tools to help us with that overwhelm. Then we're all empathetic. All of these things actually that make up the trait of high sensitivity, it's all a sliding scale. You know, you will be more sensitive on some of them than I will, but we're all deeply empathic and can really feel what's going on with other people to varying degrees, but we can all feel it. Yeah, and then the sensory
Yeah,
stuff that I talked about. So that, I mean, that's it in a nutshell, but it shows up very differently for everybody.
it does. It absolutely does. I mean, I can relate to you on watching scary movies or anything like that. I can't
Yeah.
handle it. But just like even, noises certain noises really tend to get to me. And also I have to be very careful about, how much I'm on the computer during the day, and really keeping that in check, because it's like I absorb so much more. But the funny thing is I get secondhand embarrassment for somebody else because I take it on, even though they may not seem to be embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for them.
Do you know what? You've
But
just saying that. I have that too. And I hadn't really
yeah,
appreciated that. But yeah, I'm sort of over here dying of embarrassment, and it's not even anything to do with me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
happened to me last night, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Every day's a
but
school day. I love it.
yeah, it's something that really gets, but you're right. It shows up differently for everyone. And so it's really important to identify what that is for you and make sure that you have the tools and things to really go to, or first, obviously the awareness so that you know what tools and things to go. But, as a sensitive, highly sensitive person, you mentioned how we tend to get overwhelmed more easily, and there's a few other characteristics, whether it's more prone to like depression and anxiety and things like that,
Yeah,
just because we take on more than we should. And just being able to understand, being a highly sensitive person, the different effects that it can have, which in our conversation today, we're talking about the road to burnout
yeah,
and how highly sensitive people, it's almost like a freeway versus a side country road that you're just scenically going. It's like a freeway. You're on the fast track to burnout. And if you don't realize that you're on the superhighway, like naturally, it can get the best of you. And when it gets the best of you, you're not able to really show up for the people that you're supposed to serve. You're not able to be and give from a place of overflow. And so let's talk about that link between being an HSP and burnout. So I would love for you to share a little bit more about that, and also your personal story.
yeah, of course. And you're absolutely right, because we are taking in so much more, we're feeling so much more. There's a lot going on all the time, unless, of course, we are giving ourselves a complete sensory break. And that is one of the coping skills. But, we are taking much more in. And as a result of that, overwhelm can come quite quickly. And as you pointed out, the overwhelm can very quickly turn to anxiety or depression. And before you know it, you are absolutely in burnout without you even realizing what has happened. I mean, just before we dive further, I would so we are on that super highway to burnout if we're not careful. You're right. The good news is that if we can realize what is happening, and even if we do get to burnout, when we have tools to use to help us, the healing can come quite quickly as well, because we feel that as well. So, and we feel that deeply. So, anybody who is listening or watching and feels that they are in burnout, then, please do know, with some tools and some good strategies to help you, I would really hope that you would be on the road to recovery quite quickly as well.
Thank you
So
for
yeah,
pointing that out. That's really important. I'm so glad you just said that. Um,
yeah, because you
because
can feel like
it's
there's no hope sometimes when you get to that stage. And especially, I mean, I have been in deep burnout at least 3 times in my life, and it is not a place that I ever want to be ever again. And I did feel it was quite hopeless at times. So that was why I was keen to say that. For me, anything that I talk about now about burnout, it is with a massive dose of hindsight, because at the time I didn't know any of this. I didn't know how much my childhood trauma was affecting me. I didn't know I was highly sensitive. So now I can look back through those lenses and see exactly what was going on. I was a consummate people pleaser, as I've said, and that came up in my work. I mean, I was a lawyer for 27 years. Well, I practiced law for 19 years. And, I think it's probably even more so in the US, but certainly here, I worked in big corporate law firms, and it was go, 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 go all the time. And it's really funny, because when I meet HSPs for the first time, they say, "You were a lawyer. How on earth did you manage being a lawyer and being an HSP?" And the answer was with difficulty, to be fair. I mean, the job itself, the clients, you know, that was one thing to deal with. The environment, the culture was a complete other thing. And that's where I feel, for me, the burnout comes from, because I'm bringing my people pleasing tendencies into that. You know, I just, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. And I was trying to please everybody. I was trying to do well in my career. And I did not notice any of the signs. I did not notice when things that I used to enjoy, I didn't enjoy anymore, when really there was no joy left in life. I didn't want to get up and go to work. I didn't want to get up at the weekends, even when I wasn't going to work. I was lethargic. I was tired all the time. I was pretty miserable. I didn't want to see my friends. I wasn't eating well. I was drinking too much to compensate for feeling so grim, which of course then becomes, you know, a real circle. You know, you drink to make yourself feel better, you don't feel better, you feel worse after the drink, and it just goes round and round. And I didn't learn the first time because I didn't really know what I was doing. As I've already said, I just thought I was broken. I couldn't do it as well as other people. So I had a week off work, slept for a week, and then went back and did exactly the same thing that I'd been doing before, because I didn't know what was happening. And I did that at least 3 times, the last one being in 2019 after my therapy. So even after my therapy, I was still deep in, well, I was coming out of it. And I think as a result of the therapy and opening Pandora's box and letting all this stuff out, I think that's what led to the last bout of burnout. And it was as a result of that that I learned I was highly sensitive, and it all started to make sense.
Yeah. I love how you just shared that and how it was showing up for you in different ways, and the coping that you were using, because I think so many people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Because if you're in that, it's harder to see, like you said, hindsight. And so knowing that, you know, you've gone through burnout a few times, and I myself have too, and through those experiences we learn tools and tips to help circumvent it when we start to notice it. So what are some tools and tips that you would like to share with our viewers that can help them when they start to recognize they're going down that path?
Okay, so I can only tell you what I've done as a highly sensitive person experiencing burnout. So if somebody is watching this and isn't a highly sensitive person, I mean, obviously these things that I'm going to talk about will work to some degree for everybody. I don't know whether it would be different actually if you weren't highly sensitive, but now let's just unravel. So as part of my therapy, I learned that because of the way I had grown up, my nervous system was on high alert the whole time. Hypervigilance was absolutely my normal state of being, and I was ready for whatever was going to happen all the time. And you know, with that comes a body that's flooded with adrenaline and cortisol, and really not in great shape. So as a result of my therapy, I had already learned things like I'd cut out alcohol and caffeine, and those were my 2 main stimulants. So I'd cut those out for a while because I thought I knew I needed to calm my nervous system down. I had a really lovely, then I have to say I don't do it quite so much now, but I had a really lovely morning routine of, you know, of getting up and making, you know, having a nice cup of tea and lighting a candle and doing some journaling and really having a nice calm leading into my day. So I made sure I had time on my own. I made sure that I was out in nature. a lot. So I'd learned those things as part of my trauma recovery. And then when I learned I was a highly sensitive person, it turns out that as highly sensitive people, we do have nervous systems that are more easily and more prone to hypervigilance, because that's just the way we are, because we react so much more to the sensory stimuli. So I'd already learned some tools and tricks, the things that I've just explained. Definitely being out in nature as much as possible, and anything else that I mean, it's trial and error as well. I think there's no one size fits all. So what sort of things can I do that are either out and out rest, or what can I do that is restoration? So it might not be what we traditionally think of as rest, which is, I don't know, feet up watching Netflix or in bed or resting, but more doing something, but something that feeds my soul. So it might be a craft or an art activity. It might be a lovely, gentle walk in nature. For me, I like going swimming in very cold water. Because, and not like mega swimming, I go for the cold water. So I'm not powering up and down. I am gently sort of what do we call it? We're bumbling up and down in the cold water, but it's the cold water that's really helping our nervous systems. And we're doing something that feels hard, because it's really hard to get in really cold water. And we are controlling our breathing when we're in there, and we're getting out and realizing that we've done something that is hard, but we've done it, and it's restoring us. So that's what I mean about, and restoration can look different for everybody. So those are still some of the things that I use now to help me keep my nervous system at a good level. And sorry, the thought that I had then has just gone straight out of my head. It will come back in a minute. Oh, I know what it was. So sorry, welcome to my menopause, a brain. And now I recognize the signs much better. So I know that I don't normally have a knot in my stomach. I don't normally have that feeling in my stomach. And that is often my first sign that, oh, okay, things are getting a little bit much. And now, rather than telling myself, oh, just get on with it, which is what I would normally have said, now I'm okay, I need to back off a little bit. What can I cancel? What can I move? What can I do for restoration? And I will address those early warning signs much quicker and since I have been practicing that way of being, I have not hit burnout again. So for me, that works, but it's been a bit of trial and error.
It has been trial and error for me too, but I have to just point out what you just said about reassessing your commitments, because I think that's super important, especially if you're a people pleaser, or like you just have a hard time saying no. And and there's a lot of reasons for that. Another topic for another time, but being able to understand that if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And then being able to, if you committed to it, you can go back. And if it's not a high priority, you can actually say it's just not a good time right now. So because if, like I said earlier, if you are coming from a depleted cup, you're not giving from that place of overflow, and it comes across in your energy. And then really, what good are you really doing? And if you are, purpose-driven, heart-centered entrepreneur, it's very important that you protect that energy so that you can really serve and deliver that impact for, what you're meant to be doing. And so being able to have more of the healthy boundaries, I would say for me, is it really, one of the biggest things that I learned about 8 years ago when I was on this journey as well, trying to figure out work-life balance. It in my dictionary, it doesn't exist. But it was one of those things where I knew that I was on the road to burnout. And like I said, I have experienced it a few times. But it's finding the tools and the things that are going to work for you. And like you said, it is different. I know some people that like the ice bath. Like I could never jump in an ice bath, but ice baths like help you like restart your nervous system
Yep.
and so they do that. Or like for me, I just have to be in absolute quiet in order to reset. And it doesn't matter if I'm at a stoplight, if I'm sitting in a parking lot, or whatnot. In walking in nature, that's another one that I'll run out and walk my dog for 15 minutes just to get that reset for myself. But like you said, it can look so many different ways. The key is to recognize when you're on that road so that you can start to figure out what are those things that you can pull from. So thank you for sharing your genius, sharing your story, and just how important it is to be able to recognize what are those things for you, and even being able to relate it back to being highly sensitive, and how that magnifies certain things for someone. So I would love to, and I did not prep you for this,
Oh.
but I would love for you to share, if you had one message to share with the world and you could shout it from the mountaintops for everyone to hear, what would that message be?
And is that about burnout, you mean?
Anything. It's
Oh,
Philippa's message to the world.
well, my usual message, because this has been my experience, is that you're never too old and it's never too late to do the deep inner work that we need to do to really know who we are. And I didn't do that work willingly. I didn't step into it thinking, oh yeah, let's do this inner work. I was dragged in, kicking and screaming when I lost the sight in my eye. But now I am so glad it happened. And it just, that's what I want to say. It's never too late and you're never too old. And on the basis on what we've been talking about burnout, I'd say, by putting yourself first, you're not being selfish. In order to be you in the world and be in your full power in the world and being the best you that you can be, you need to do what's right for you. And I think as women, we just don't grow up thinking that that's okay. And I kind of want to tell everybody it is okay. It's necessary.
It is absolutely necessary. Thank you so much. And thank you for being with us today. If someone wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, thanks. It's been wonderful being here. Thank you. So you did mention I had a podcast, and actually Meeting of Minds is my previous podcast that I had on my own. I have a podcast that I started in April 2023 with my good friend Robbie Lee called HSP Connection. And that's all about being an HSP. So any HSPs out there who would like to come and find us and listen to us, that would be amazing. And if anybody wants to know anything else about me, my website is safeandsupported.co.uk.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Wesley.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for being here.